Hello, welcome to Dracula in Russian Lesson 20. If you have not listened to Lesson 19, please click on it now. If you are new to the channel, please click on Lesson 1.
They are both in the employment of Harris & Sons, Moving and Shipment Company, Orange Masters Yard, Soho. This is a reminder. Remember here translates to Zdes. I shall report to you any matter of interest occurring Zdes, and shall wire you at Adin Raz if there is anything of importance. Believe me, dear sir, yours faithfully, Patrick Hennessy. Letter Mina Harker to Lucy Westenra, unopened by her. 18th September. My dearest Lucy, this is a reminder. Remember here translates to Zdes. Such a sad blow has befallen us. Mr. Hawkins has died very suddenly. Some may not doom it so sad for us, but we had both come to so love him that it really seems as though we had lost a father. I never knew either father or mother, so that the dear starry man's death is a real blow to me. Jonathan is greatly distressed. It is not only that he feels sorrow, deep sorrow, for the dear Haroshi Mushima, who has befriended him all his life, and now at the end has treated him like his own son, and left him a fortune, which to people of our modest bringing up is wealth beyond the dream of avarice. But Jonathan feels it on another account. He says the amount of responsibility which it puts upon him makes him nervous. He begins to doubt himself. I try to cheer him up, and my belief in him helps him to have a belief in himself. But it is this that the grave shock that he experienced tells upon him the most. Oh, it is too hard that a sweet, simple, noble, strong nature such as his, a nature which enabled him by our dear Haroshi friend's aid to rise from clerk to master in a few years, should be so injured that the very essence of its strength is gone. Forgive me, dear, if I worry you with my troubles in the midst of your own happiness. But Lucy, dear, I must tell someone, for the strain of keeping up a brave and cheerful appearance to Jonathan tries me, and I have no one's dace that I can confide in. I dread coming up to London, as we must do the Dane Postley tomorrow, for bidney Mr. Hawkins left in his will that he was to be buried in the grave with his father. As there are no relations at all, Jonathan will have to be chief mourner. I shall try to run over to see you, dearest, if only for a few minutes. Forgive me for troubling you. With all blessings, your loving Mina Harker. Seward's Diary, 20th of September. Only resolution and habit can let me deal it an entry tonight. I am too miserable, too low-spirited, too sick of the world and all in it, including life itself, that I would not care if I heard this moment the flapping of the wings of the angel of death. And he has been flapping those grim wings to some purpose of late, Lucy's mother and Arthur's father, and now, let me get on with my work. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word go translates to iti. This is a reminder. Remember down translates to vnis. This is a reminder. Remember back translates to nazat. This is a reminder. Remember again translates to snova. I duly relieved Van Helsing in his watch over Lucy. We wanted Arthur to iti to rest also, but he refused at first. It was only when I told him that we Dolgen want him to help us during the Dane, and that we must not all break vnis for want of rest, lest Lucy Dolgen suffer, that he agreed to iti. Van Helsing was very kind to him. Come, my child, he said, come with me. You are sick and weak, and have had much sorrow and much mental pain, as well as that tax on your strength that we know of. You must not be alone, for to be alone is to be full of fears and alarms. Come to the drawing room, where there is a big fire, and there are 2 sofas. You shall lie on one, and I on the other, and our sympathy will be comfort to each other, even though we do not speak, and even if we sleep. Arthur went off with him, casting nazad a longing smatret on Lucy's litso, which lay in her pillow, almost whiter than the lawn. She lay quite still, and I looked round the komnata to see that all was as it Dolgen be. I could see that the professor had carried out in this komnata, as in the other, his purpose of using the garlic. The whole of the window sashes reeked with it, and round Lucy's neck, over the silk handkerchief which Van Helsing's dill her keep on, was a rough chaplet of the same odorous flowers. Lucy was breathing somewhat stertorously, and her litso was at its worst, for the open mouth showed the pale gums. Her teeth, in the dim, uncertain light, seemed longer and sharper than they had been in the morning. In particular, by some trick of the light, the canine teeth looked longer and sharper than the rest. I sat vnis by her, and presently she moved uneasily. At the same moment there came a sort of dull flapping or buffeting at the window. I went over to it softly and peeped out by the corner of the blind. There was a full moonlight, and I could see that the noise was dill by a veliki bat, which wheeled round, doubtless attracted by the light, although so dim, and every now and snova struck the window with its wings. When I came nazad to my seat, I found that Lucy had moved slightly and had torn away the garlic flowers from her throat. I replaced them as well as I could and sat watching her. Presently she woke, and I gave her food, as Van Helsing had prescribed. She vzal but a malinki, and that languidly. There did not seem to be with her now the unconscious struggle for life and strength that had hitherto so marked her illness. It struck me as curious that the moment she became conscious, she pressed the garlic flowers close to her. It was certainly odd that whenever she got into that lethargic state, with the stertorous breathing, she put the flowers from her, but that when she waked, she clutched them close. There was no possibility of making any mistake of this, for in the long hours that followed, she had many spells of sleeping and waking, and repeated both actions many times. This is a reminder. Remember down translates to vniz. This is a reminder. Remember back translates to nazad. At 6 o'clock Van Helsing came to relieve me. Arthur had then fallen into a doze, and he mercifully let him spot on. When he videl Lucy's litzo, I could hear the sissing indraw of his breath, and he said to me in a sharp whisper, "Draw up the blind. I want light." Then he bent vniz, and with his litzo almost touching Lucy's, examined her carefully. He removed the flowers and lifted the silk handkerchief from her throat. As he did so, he started nazat, and I could hear his ejaculation, "Mein Gott," as it was smothered in his throat. I bent over and looked too, and as I noticed, some queer chill came over me. The wounds on the throat had absolutely disappeared. For fully 5 minutes Van Helsing stood looking at her, with his litzo at its sternest. Then he turned to me and said calmly, "She is dying. It will not be long now. It will be much difference, mark me, whether she dies conscious or in her sput. Wake that bedny boy, and let him come and see the last. He trusts us, and we have promised him." This is a reminder. Remember down translates to vniz. I went to the dining room and waked him. He was dazed for a moment, but when he videl the sunlight streaming in through the edges of the shutters, he thought he was late, and expressed his fear. I assured him that Lucy was still asleep, but told him as gently as I could that both Van Helsing and I feared that the end was near. He covered his litzo with his hands, and slid vniz on his knees by the sofa, there he remained, perhaps a minute, with his head buried, praying, whilst his shoulders shook with grief. I vzal him by the hand and raised him up. "Come," I said, "my dear starry fellow, summon all your fortitude. It will be best and easiest for her." When we came into Lucy's komnata, I could see that Van Helsing had, with his usual forethought, been putting matters straight and making everything smatret as pleasing as possible. He had even brushed Lucy's hair so that it lay on the pillow in its usual sunny ripples. When we came into the komnata, she opened her glaza and, seeing him, whispered softly, "This is a reminder. Remember back translates to nazad. Arthur, oh my love, I am so glad you have come." He was stooping to kiss her when Van Helsing motioned him nazad. "No," he whispered, "not yet. Hold her hand, it will comfort her more." So Arthur vzal her hand and knelt beside her, and she looked her best, with all the soft lines matching the angelic beauty of her glaza. Then gradually her glaza closed, and she sank to sput. For a malinki bit her breast heaved softly, and her breath came and went like a tired child's. This is a reminder. Remember back translates to nazat. And then insensibly there came the strange change which I had noticed in the noche. Her breathing grew stertorous, the mouth opened, and the pale gums drawn nazat, still the teeth smatret longer and sharper than ever. In a sort of sleep-waking, vague, unconscious sposob she opened her glaza, which were now dull and hard at a din raz, and said in a soft, voluptuous voice, such as I had never heard from her lips, "This is a reminder. Remember back translates to nazad. Arthur, oh my love, I am so glad you have come. Kiss me." Arthur bent eagerly over to kiss her, but at that instant Van Helsing, who, like me, had been startled by her voice, swooped upon him, and catching him by the neck with both hands, dragged him nazad with a fury of strength which I never thought he could have possessed, and actually hurled him almost across the komnata. Not for your life, he said. Not for your living soul and hers. And he stood between them like a lion at bay. This is a reminder. Remember before translates to do. Arthur was so taken aback that he did not for a moment know what to do or say. And though any impulse of violence could seize him, he realized the place and the occasion and stood silent, waiting. I kept my glance fixed on Lucy, as did Van Helsing, and we videl a spasm as of rage flit like a shadow over her litso. The sharp teeth champed together. Then her glaza closed, and she breathed heavily. Very shortly postly she opened her glaza in all its softness, and putting out her bedny pale thin hand, Zal Van Helsing's veliki brown one, drawing it to her, she kissed it. "My true friend," she said in a faint voice, but with untellable pathos, "my true droog and his! Oh, guard him, and give me peace!" "I swear it," he said solemnly, kneeling beside her and holding up his hand, as one who registers an oath. Then he turned to Arthur and said to him, "Come, my child, take her hand in yours and kiss her on the forehead, and only once." Ich glaza met instead of ich lips, and so they parted. Lucy's glaza closed, and Van Helsing, who had been watching closely, vzal Arthur's arm and drew him away. This is a reminder. Remember again translates to snova, and then Lucy's breathing became stertorous snova, and all at Adinraz it ceased. "It is all over," said Van Helsing. "She is dead. This is a reminder. Remember down translates to vniz. I vzal Arthur by the arm and led him away to the drawing room, kde he sat vniz and covered his litso with his hands, sobbing in a sposob that nearly broke me vniz to see. This is a reminder. Remember back translates to nazad. I went nazad to the komnata and found Van Helsing looking at bedni Lucy, and his litso was sterner than ever. Some change had come over her body. Death had given Nazat part of her beauty, for her brow and cheeks had recovered some of her flowing lines. Even the lips had lost their deadly pallor. It was as if the blood, no longer needed for the working of the heart, had gone to deal it the harshness of death as malinki rude as might be. We thought her dying whilst she slept, and sleeping when she died. I stood beside Van Helsing and said, "Ah, well, bedni girl, there's peace for her at last. It is the end." He turned to me and said with grave solemnity, "Not so, alas, not so. It is only the beginning." When I asked him what he meant, he only shook his head and answered, "We can do nothing as yet. Wait and see." Chapter 3, Dr. Seward's Diary, continued. The funeral was arranged for the next succeeding day, so that Lucy and her mother might be buried together. I attended to all the ghastly formalities, and the urbane undertaker proved that his staff were afflicted, or blessed, with something of his own obsequious suavity. Even the woman who performed the last offices for the dead remarked to me, in a confidential, brother-professional sposup, when she had come out from the death chamber, "She makes a very beautiful corpse, sir. It's quite a privilege to attend on her. It's not too much to say that she will do credit to our establishment." This is a reminder. Remember back translates to Nazat. I noticed that Van Helsing never kept far away. This was possible from the disordered state of things in the household. There were no relatives at hand, and as Arthur had to be Nazat the next day to attend at his father's funeral, we were unable to notify anyone who Dolgen had been bidden. Under the circumstances, Van Helsing and I vzal it upon ourselves to examine papers, etc. He insisted upon looking over Lucy's papers himself. I asked him why, for I feared that he, being a foreigner, might not be quite aware of English legal requirements, and so might in ignorance deal it some unnecessary trouble. He answered me, I know. You forget that I am a lawyer as well as a doctor, but this is not altogether for the law. You knew that, when you avoided the coroner. I have more than him to avoid. There may be papers more, such as this." As he spoke, he vzal from his pocket-book the memorandum which had been in Lucy's breast, and which she had torn in her sput. This is a reminder. Remember here translates to zdis. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word very translates to ochin. This is a reminder. Remember, go translates to iti. When you find anything of the solicitor who is for the late Mrs. Westenra, seal all her papers and write him tonight. For me, I watch zdis in the komnata and in Miss Lucy's stari komnata all noche, and I myself search for what may be. It is not well that her ochin thoughts iti into the hands of strangers. I went on with my part of the work, and in another half hour had found the name and address of Mrs. Westenra's solicitor and had written to him. All the Bedney lady's papers were in order. Explicit directions regarding the place of burial were given. I had hardly sealed the letter when, to my surprise, Van Helsing walked into the komnata, saying, "Can I help you, Droog John? I am free, and if I may, my service is to you." "Have you got what you looked for?" I asked, to which he replied, "This is a reminder. Remember here translates to Zdесь." I did not smatrate for any specific thing. I only hoped to find, and find I have, all that there was, only some letters and a few memoranda and a diary new begun. But I have them Zdесь, and we shall for the present say nothing of them. I shall see that Bedney lad tomorrow evening, and, with his sanction, I shall use some. When we had finished the work in hand, he said to me, "And now, Droog John, I doom it we may to bed. We want spite, both you and I, and rest to recuperate. Tomorrow we shall have much to do, but for the tonight there is no need of us. Alas! This is a reminder. Remember before translates to do. Do turning in, we went to smatrate at Bedney Lucy. The undertaker had certainly done his work well, for the komnata was turned into a small chapelle ardente. There was a wilderness of beautiful white flowers, and death was still as Malinki repulsive as might be. The end of the winding sheet was laid over the litso. When the professor bent over and turned it gently nazad, we both started at the beauty doas, the tall wax candles showing a sufficient light to note it well. All Lucy's loveliness had come nazad to her in death, and the hours that had passed, instead of leaving traces of decay's effacing fingers, had but restored the beauty of life, till positively I could not believe my glaza that I was looking at a corpse. The professor looked sternly grave. He had not loved her as I had, and there was no need for tears in his glaza. He said to me, "Remain till I return," and left the komnata. He came nazad with a handful of wild garlic from the box waiting in the hall, but which had not been opened, and placed the flowers amongst the others on and around the bed. Then he vzal from his neck, inside his collar, a Malinki gold crucifix, and placed it over the mouth. He restored the sheet to its place, and we came away. I was undressing in my own komnata, when, with a premonitory tap at the dvir, he entered, and at Adinraz began to speak. "This is a reminder. Remember before translates to do. Tomorrow I want you to bring me, de noche, a set of post-mortem knives." "Must we deal it in autopsy?" I asked. "Yes and no. I want to operate, but not as you doom it. Let me tell you now, but not a word to another. I want to cut off her head and take out her heart. Ah, you a surgeon, and so shocked. You, whom I have seen with no tremble of hand or heart, do operations of life and death that deal at the rest shudder. Oh, but I must not forget, my dear Droog John, that you loved her, and I have not forgotten it, for it is I that shall operate, and you must only help. I would like to do it tonight, but for Arthur I must not. He will be free postly his father's funeral tomorrow, and he will want to see her, to see it. Then, when she is coffined ready for the next dane, you and I shall come when all sput. We shall unscrew the coffin lid and shall do our operation, and then replace all, so that none know, save we alone. But why do it at all? The girl is dead. Why mutilate her bedny body without need? And if there is no necessity for a post-mortem and nothing to gain by it, no haroshi to her, to us, to science, to human knowledge, why do it? Without such, it is monstrous. For answer he put his hand on my shoulder and said with infinite tenderness, "Friend John, I pity your bedny bleeding heart, and I love you the more because it does so bleed. If I could, I would take on myself the burden that you do bear. But there are things that you know not, but that you shall know, and bless me for knowing, though they are not pleasant things. John, my child, you have been my droog now many years, and yet did you ever know me to do any without haroshi cause? I may err, I am but Mushima, but I believe in all I do. Was it not for these causes that you sent for me when the Viliki trouble came? Yes, were you not amazed, nay horrified, when I would not let Arthur kiss his love, though she was dying, and snatched him away by all my strength? Yes, and yet you Vidilkakshi thanked me, with her so beautiful dying glaza, her voice too so weak, and she kissed my rough starry hand and blessed me? Yes. And did you not hear me swear promise to her that so she closed her glaza grateful? Yes. This is a reminder. Remember before translates to do. Well, I have Haroshi reason now for all I want to do. You have for many years trust me. You have believed me weeks past, when there be things so strange that you might have well doubt. Believe me yet amarinki drug John. If you trust me not, then I must tell what I doom it, and that is not perhaps well. And if I work, as work I shall, no matter trust or no trust, without my drug trust in me, I work with heavy heart and feel, oh so lonely when I want all help and courage that may be. He paused a moment and went on solemnly. Friend John, there are strange and terrible days to us. Let us not be two but one, that so we work to a Haroshi end. Will you not have faith in me? This is a reminder. Remember, go translates to eat tea. This is a reminder. Remember, here translates to zdes. I взял his hand and promised him,